If you're not patterning your shotgun before you go out hunting or shooting, it's likely that you're missing more shots than you should. Even worse, it's likely you're wounding more birds than you should, and we definitely don't want that. In this video, we're gonna show you how to appropriately pattern your shotgun and why it matters. Are you ready to have more success in the field? Let's go! So if you like to shoot guns, you know that ears and eyes are super important, but we often overlook the quality of our eye pro. So I want to give a quick shout out to ESS, an awesome partner of the TFL channel. They make great eye pro, and I've been working with them for a long time. They meet ANSI standards, but more so than that, they meet mil-spec standards. They also make sunglasses. If you want to look cool, you know, man, this is next level stuff. I got Fred set up downrange, and I just kind of want to see what happens if we were to shoot a 12 gauge shotgun at Fred, see what happens to his ESS eye pro that he's rocking, because Fred's all about safety. Let's go check out Fred, see how he's doing. Oh, look at this. That's 9-shot right there from a 12 gauge shotgun. These are gonna give you a really good chance at saving your eyes. They make great stuff. Check them out. Let's get back to the video. You know, I'm going duck hunting this fall, but as you can tell, I'm terrible at calling in ducks. No matter how much I blow, what I do, they just don't seem to come in. To get ready for this duck hunt, I need to pattern my shotgun. I got my exhibition gun here that I'm gonna take out duck hunting, the Mossberg 940 Pro, and I'm gonna be switching ammo. I might need to switch chokes. I really need to check this out, make sure my gun is shooting and patterning how I need it to, so I can have success, right? I'm not gonna just go out there with this basic setup and start shooting at ducks. That would be irresponsible. I think I'm gonna go with this ammo selection, which is the heavy bismuth by Federal. Can be used on pheasants or waterfowl. And I mean, I got a lot of ammo options, so I can try different things, but anytime you change your ammo, your gun, or your choke, you're gonna have different results. And maybe you know how this choke patterns with target loads. I'm often shooting 8 or 9 shot target loads. I cannot rely on that, because when I change the ammo, you have a different shot size, you have different metals, metal densities, different powder loads, speeds, velocities. All that stuff really changes your pattern. And it's important to know where our pattern is, because if we think we're shooting a perfect point of aim, meaning our point of aim is exactly where our pattern falls, we're sadly mistaken, because 80% of the time or more, our point of aim and our point of impact, where the pattern actually ends up, are not the same. And that can even vary when we change ammos and choke tubes. So let's take a shot with the heavy bismuth that I'm gonna be shooting, potentially if it patterns well, through my setup. I have my cylinder choke tube in that I use for exhibitions. Let's just see how that works first, and then we'll change choke tubes. I'll break down how I assess a pattern and then what we can do about it. Now, before we go ahead and start shooting down range, I'm gonna take the ammo that I have. I need to know how many pellets are in here. I can either do that by looking at the manufacturer's website, or I can cut it open, see what's inside. That seems more fun to me, so that's what I'm gonna do. Figure out how many pellets we have. That way when we shoot, we know what percent are on target, what percent are within a 30-inch circle. We can really break down and analyze our target. Now, if you're watching this video wondering, well, how in the world do I even go about selecting the right choke tube? I'll refer you back to our prior video that talks about just that. We're not talking about that today. There's lots of options for choke tubes. It can be confusing, so we made a video just for that. So counting the pellets, we came up with 274, but there was a few pellets that were broken. That's something bismuth will do. They're a little more brittle. So we're going with 270-ish, I think is a real comfortable number for how many pellets are in this 1.25 ounce 5-shot of bismuth. Let's go ahead, put a shot down range. We'll come back, we'll talk about tips for setup and different stuff like that, but let's just get a shot on paper and see what we're working with. So first tip, having a piece of paper to pattern on that's large enough to capture the majority of your pattern is really important. This piece of paper is something like 3x4 or close to that. And I even had some of my shot go off the pattern. Now, I'm gonna come up and assess this pattern. One of the first things I'm gonna look at is where's the center of my pattern? I like to have a marker, I like to draw. You know, you can see that I got pattern that comes all the way up here like this, down through like that. I don't have much. I have a few flyers on the right side of the board, but really my pattern density kind of comes in something like that. So I can see with my point of aim, which I was aiming right here, center of target, my point of impact wasn't 100% true with where I was aiming. My point of impact, I'm gonna say, was shifted to about here. So I was left. That's important to know. If we see that consistently as we shoot patterns, say we shoot 3 to 5, which is what I would recommend, you're gonna see kind of what the average is. And if you're consistently left, now it could be you. It could be what you're doing on the bench. I highly recommend a stable bench. I highly recommend a bag or a lead sled, something like that, to really make sure you're reducing human error. With that said, this is a dead duck. That was a cylinder choke tube at 30 yards. Okay, if I was shooting a 30-yard shot, I would probably be okay with this. As you can see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 shots in the head, several in the body, some in the wings. That's okay. I'd maybe be okay with that load. Now I'm gonna shoot several more times to figure that out, but here's the deal. When I'm hunting, you heard me calling. Yes, I know that was a goose call, not a duck call, okay. You heard me calling. I'm not that good. I'm gonna have a lot more shots closer to 40 than 30. So I wanna tighten this up a little bit to really assess the pattern. I'll go through and I'll start marking all my shots and I'll analyze how many pellets did I have within this 30-inch circle. That's kind of a standard frame of reference when patterning, is a 30-inch circle. How many pellets landed within the 30-inch circle? But then if I wanna break it down a little bit further, how many pellets landed in the target that I'm actually intending to hit? 30-inch circle gives you some margin, but I want pellets in the center mass of my target. So I'll go through, I'll count these, and we'll break down what the actual performance of this shot was. So we've counted all the pellets. At first glance, it doesn't look bad. We got quite a few shots in the duck, a lot on paper here, but after analyzing it, we realized that 52 of our 270-ish pellets are not actually anywhere on the paper. We'd like to tighten that up a little bit, have a higher percentage of pellets land within this 30-inch circle. We ended up having 163 pellets in this 30-inch circle. That's 60.3%. We'll just call it 60%. So let's go back, let's change out chokes, see what effect that makes at 30 yards, and we can analyze the data. So as far as equipment you're gonna wanna have to do the job well, obviously having a large piece of paper like this is really nice. You can buy these targets online. We'll put a link to those down in the description. A stapler comes in really handy to put up targets quickly and to hold them down, especially if you have any wind. I do like to add whatever I'm hunting or shooting at. If I was shooting a clay, I just leave it like this, but this gives me a really nice visual. And when I analyze the data, I really like to see not how many are just in a 30-inch circle, but how many am I putting in the target that I'm intending to shoot. Markers are also a good thing to have, Sharpies. When I come and analyze the data, I like to write down what happened. So then after I shoot several patterns, I can start to compare, okay, this is what we got here, this is what we got here. And like I mentioned before, shooting 3 to 5 patterns is really gonna give you an average, because not every pattern is gonna be the exact same every shot. But with that said, other things that can come in handy are a rangefinder. You can obviously do the old-fashioned method of let's step it off, or you can use a rangefinder and get your target set up exactly. We're gonna go ahead and switch out our choke tube from this sporting clay cylinder choke tube to the Carlson's Cremator, which is a mid-range. They kind of break it down to make it easy to understand. Mid-range, 30 yards would still be in our mid-range. Beyond 40 is kind of like your long range. But let's go ahead, see what the difference makes. This is a ported choke tube. Now, as we're patterning, one thing to consider is that sometimes certain ammos just don't pattern well. And it's not a bad idea before you buy all your ammo for the season to have a couple different options and then say like, okay, I've seen how this patterns. Let's now try the Federal Black Cloud, for example, or the Heavy Hammer. Pattern performance isn't the only thing to consider when it comes to ammunition. We made a whole video about what ammo is best for, say, duck hunting. We can make more ammo videos with comparisons. In fact, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that down below. But right now we're focused on patterns, so we're getting back to patterning. So we got our mid-range choke in. Let's go ahead and put another shot down range and see how that compares to our first shot. First thing I'm gonna look at, point of impact again. Point of aim was right there. Really not much for pellets off the right side, but this left side We come all the way out there like that, a few high. That's given us similar feedback that we had from that first shot. Point of impact is shifted left, maybe 4 inches or so, I would say, would give us a close ballpark. So point of aim, point of impact, let's say it's there. Believe it or not, we came up with better results. Instead of putting 60% of the pellets in a 30-inch circle, like we did with that cylinder choke tube, we now put 80% of the pellets in a 30-inch circle. Instead of putting 22 in the duck, we put 47 in the duck. But here's some of the main takeaways. 1, I know I have a good dense pattern at the distance I'm going to be shooting, 30 to 40 yards. I know, especially after I do 3 to 5 shots, if I'm consistently left, my point of impact is shifted from my point of aim, or where I'm pointing the gun. That's important information to know. It might not be like that with every single ammo combination you shoot. So if you're switching ammos willy-nilly, go out and pattern it and see if there's much difference between what you've been shooting. With this information though, I can really reduce frustration. Maybe I'm missing a lot of right crossing shots. Well, I know my point of impact is a little bit left. I might need to swing a little further on that right shot than I do on the left. But I'm pretty okay with this. Now there's things we can do to adjust our point of impact, point of aim, point of impact equation. If you were turkey hunting, it's really easy. Change your sights, right? Change your red dot or your iron sights, however you're using to aim. When you're duck hunting, it's a little more challenging. We can move our stock around. We're not gonna dive deep into that, but there's some ways to kind of get our point of aim and point of impact to line up a little bit better. But my head was right on the stock, looking right down the barrel. Evidently this combo shoots a little high left, but I know that now because I patterned. I also know that my ammo and choke selection is gonna be appropriate. I know how it performs, but like I said, make sure you shoot 3 to 5 patterns, get an average out of that, get data on paper, experiment, play with it, try some different ammo combinations, and have some fun and just see how changing little things can lead to impact on paper and in the field. So like a fool, I didn't bring enough ammo. I ran out of my heavy bismuth. Now my buddy, Jordan, he's shooting the cheaper stuff. He's got the Federal Speed Shock, still good stuff, but it's not the bismuth that I was wanting to shoot. Let's just out of curiosity, take a shot with this. This is a 2-shot steel versus a 5-shot bismuth, both 1.25 ounces, 1,450 feet per second, 1,350 feet per second. This was a 2 3/4 inch shell versus a 3-inch shell. Is it gonna make that big of a difference? Let's find out. So it's important to note, we kept the choke tube the same. We were happy with the performance with our bismuth. This is a scenario, you're switching ammos but didn't switch anything else. Let's see what difference it made. First thing I noticed coming up here is our pattern point of impact is tremendously different. We do have a few outside here, one kind of flyer up there, but pretty much everything is contained within a 30-inch circle. It's important to note we're going from a shell that had 270 pellets now to a steel shot that has 156. Pellet count is not the only factor we're looking at when we're choosing a round, but as far as patterning, that's important to note. All right, folks, I'm gonna try not to get too deep into the weeds here. Look at this pattern. What's your first impression? My first impression is, look, almost all the pellets were within this 30-inch circle. We had a few flyers out here, one up here. But we did the calculation, and 93% of the 156 pellets landed within the 30-inch circle. That's pretty impressive. So then when you ask the question versus that 5-shot bismuth I was shooting that only had 80%, which is still pretty good, which one's better? Is the 93% better? Is the 80% better? A few things we can look at here. One, I like how my point of aim and my point of impact were pretty much the same with this. Now to really test that again, I have to shoot 3 to 5 shots, but I like what I see there. I'm pretty centered with the mass of my pellets. What I don't like, there's one pellet right there. We kind of have some substantial gaps that we're finding that was quite a bit different. Now we are working with 156 pellets. That number 5-shot bismuth had 270 pellets. That's 73% more pellets. Now this is where I don't want to get in the weeds because we can look at all sorts of factors about what type of energy was it carrying down range. 5-shot is obviously smaller than a 2-shot steel, but bismuth is more dense than steel. We're not gonna answer that in this video. I've made some videos talking more about that, and I will make more videos. If I had to make a choice, I'm not sure, what would you choose? Would you choose the number 2 steel? Just considering patterns. We're only looking at patterns. Or did you like the number 5 shot bismuth? I like the number 5 shot bismuth. I just feel like I had a much more full pattern coverage, a lot more pellets on target. Now we could break it down and discuss the energy and all that stuff, but I feel more comfortable that I'm gonna hit what I'm shooting at with this pattern. Simply because of these gaps, it's a little bit of a toss-up, and it's not always a clear answer. But what I would say is this is why we put it on paper. We know what we're working with now. We've patterned our shotgun. We've seen the data. Now we can go out to the field and know what we're actually shooting. So that's how you pattern a shotgun. I hope this video was informative and helpful to you. If you have any other questions pertaining to patterning or pertaining to ammo selection, let me know down in the comments. We'd love to make more videos that are helpful to you. Remember, whether you're in the field or in life, you're only gonna hit those shots you're laser focused on and properly patterned for. So live target focused. See ya.